Good morning. Hey, you might notice a little something different here today. For this week, starting February, we're going back to communities, our social studies, and using our communities book. What's really going to help you guys out is we're focusing on the United States map, just like we ended before Christmas, but that's going to be found way, way, way in the back of the book. So we have these kind of pages, and you're going to start seeing some maps back here. But when you start getting to these R pages here, it's kind of weird. It starts with R1, R2, so on and so forth. But again, you're going to start seeing some maps, and we're going to look for the map with all the states and capitals there. So that's where you guys need to be looking there for your assignments. So if you're looking at those pages right now, we went through a lot of what we call the East Coast along the Atlantic Ocean. We started with extreme northeast. Remember, like Augusta, Maine, right? States and capitals. Boston, Massachusetts. All those really smaller states. And then we kind of went down the Atlantic Ocean coast and went down to more of the New England states, and then even farther down to the southeast states. Those are bigger states like Georgia with Atlanta, the capital city, and Florida, whose capital city is Tallahassee, right? And all those different ones. In fact, the southeast is kind of, trapped is not a good word, but bordered by the Atlantic Ocean and below in the Gulf of Mexico, and then it's got the Mississippi River and the Ohio River on top. So it's got really good waterways, and that's what you're also going to see with these Midwest states. So just so you understand, the mid, let's get to a map here. The mid is because if you take a peek, well, come on, map. Where are you at? There we go. Kind of the middle of a country. Now, I know we have this extreme part, but you can see how the reason it's called the middle of our country, right? And the west part comes in and say, wait a second, there's a lot of land to the west. But for a lot of the country's history, I'm talking like the first 100 years, the Mississippi River here was really the western border of the United States. So this land used to be the extreme west of the United States. This is kind of where we get into a little bit of troublesome history, because there are different wars that we fought with Mexico, and of course a lot of the Native American tribes went to war with, and different things like that. Again, a bad time in our history where, to be honest, our country made some mistakes, but that's how a lot of this land became part of the United States. And in fact, I'm getting off on a tangent here, but Texas, the reason it's called the Lone Star State is because Texas, for a lot of time, was its own country. It was its own country. They were part of Mexico, and then they fought for their independence from Mexico. The United States said, hey, Texas, why don't you come be part of the United States? And Texas said, thanks, but no thanks. We're going to be our own country. So they were for a few years there, and then they started going into debt and thinking, man, this is kind of hard. We're losing money like crazy. So yeah, let's go be part of the United States. But anyways, that's part of the Southwest. Let's get back to the Midwest, huh? So these are the different states that you can see better outlined here. And a couple things we're going to focus on. I just want to introduce the states to you. But you're going to see some straight lines where they have the borders here. That's pretty obvious. But if you can tell, a lot of the borders are really squiggly. Like, look at the southern part of Ohio and Indiana, and look at the southern part of Illinois, and going right through the Midwest. Look at these squiggly lines and these squiggly lines. Those generally indicate rivers. If we go back to the fine state of Arizona, you can see straight line, straight line, straight line, straight line. Wait, what's this squiggly line to our west? That's the Colorado River. A lot of times they used rivers to set the borders of states, or before states, what we call territories. So you can kind of tell these rivers. And unlike when we talked about Arizona, how we have the Colorado River, that's great, not good for shipping. So Arizona is definitely landlocked, even though we do have some rivers. You can't use it for shipping, big, huge boats that carry a lot of cargo all over. The Midwest is very different. That these rivers are some of the biggest rivers, first of all, in our country, in our continent, and even in the world. And these rivers are very good for shipping. The Mississippi River is one of the longest in the world. And look, you look at way here in northern Minnesota, it's, man, not even close to an ocean, but they can ship a lot of goods and a lot of cargo, a lot of things that they sell right down the Mississippi River and into the Gulf of Mexico and anywhere in the world then with the oceans. Even take a look at big cities like Chicago, Illinois. They got this big lake, but like, oh man, we're stuck here. Oh, no, not so fast. We're going to talk about these Great Lakes on Thursday and how significant they are because they can ship things way up here and go through what they call the Erie Canal and get to the East River and the Hudson River here, and get to the Atlantic Ocean here. I forgot the name of the river there in New York, but that's how they can get to the ocean there too. So great waterways. And if you remember what we talked about before, Chris, is how important those shipping routes are to both buy things and sell things. Yes, even in the 21st century that we're in, where we have Amazon and huge trucks and huge planes going all over, shipping, literally selling and putting things on boats to ship all over the world, is still a huge part of the world's economy. In other words, how states and countries make money. So, this is what we're going to be talking about here, is both the states' names and the capital cities. And again, here it guys shows a lot of different rivers, and here's a good little locator map to show you where in the country we're talking about. It's a lot of times you call the Midwest states, and especially these are starting to call the Great Plains states. You remember from science, a plain ecosystem is just a long stretch of flat land. This is where a lot of the grassland is. We're going to talk about why that's so important later in the week. But again, I just want to talk about the certain states. But this is what you see a lot in the Midwest. Long, open, flat land, which is great for farming. Lot for grazing cattle. I know these are buffalo, but they're like these wide open fields where, being herbivores, right, they eat plants, they can eat all day long, right? And then we have, remember, the extreme weather. This is that part of Tornado Alley. We're going to talk about the different weather in the Midwest coming up, and they get all the extremes. I know we've been having some colder weather here in Arizona, but when I talk about extreme weather, I'm talking about big tornado-like storms, super hot in the summer, and not necessarily the temperatures like we get in Arizona, but the humidity. Remember what that is? The water in the air makes things extra hot and extra sticky and extra sweaty. That's what happens a lot in summer, and then in winter they get the extreme cold, snowstorms, ice storms, freezing temperatures for a lot of the winter months. So they really go up and down in the Midwest. Again, we're going to talk about the different rivers and waterways and why it's called the Heartland. But one thing you're going to see about all these different states is a lot of different agricultural type things. And what I mean by that is a lot of things to do with the land, whether that's fishing, whether that's being a cowboy or buffalo, or crops like we have corn and wheat and different things like that. If you're here to Wisconsin, if you're a Packer fan, you're a cheesehead because they got a lot of cows and dairy, and they got a lot of different cheese and milk and dairy things like that. And yes, we also have big cities scattered in, and big manufacturing. That's true too. But we're going to especially talk a lot about the different crops and agriculture type things, because that really helps feed the entire country and a lot of the world. So, went too far again here. Sorry about that. Here's your assignment today. You have a map that's not fully blank, because you can see we have the state capitals both located and named, but we got some lines in here. That's where you guys come in. Your job is to simply write the state's names in all these blanks. I would strongly suggest you use R6 and R7 in the back of the book. One thing I want you to be cautious of, take a look at this state right here. You can see how Michigan looks a little bit like a hand, right? It does, and it's bordered almost completely by lakes. But this little stretch up here, this is actually part of Michigan. We're going to talk about that Thursday when we talk about the Great Lakes and the whole history of why in the world is this part of Michigan when it's not even attached to Michigan. It's attached to Wisconsin. But this stretch up here is what they call the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Peninsula means it's a swath of land that's surrounded on three sides by water. And you can see how that fits the criteria of being a peninsula, right? So yeah, you're kind of asked to write Michigan twice. It's not Michigan 1 and Michigan 2. It's not what it is. But just so you understand that this part here is part of Michigan. It's not a separate state. It's one state, and this is all Michigan. But that's why they have a second line up here, just so you help remind you of that. But this is your assignment for today, guys. Please write in the state names. You probably figured out tomorrow we're going to do the opposite, where you got to write in the capital city names. But we'll get to that tomorrow. Hey, Lord's blessings to you guys as you praise your Savior.